Native bride sent to the wrong ranch, but the lonely rancher whispered, God finally sent you to us. Elena stood at the edge of the small dirt road, her heart beating fast. She clutched her small bag tightly, feeling the weight of the journey she had just begun. Her family had told her that she was to marry a kind rancher who lived far away, and she was nervous but hopeful. This marriage was part of an old family tradition, something that her ancestors had followed for generations. Though the idea made her anxious, Elena had been raised to respect her family's wishes, and she trusted that they knew what was best for her. The sun was low in the sky, painting the fields around her with warm shades of orange and gold. The air smelled faintly of earth and grass, and the soft sound of cattle in the distance reminded her that she was entering a life very different from the one she had always known. Her home village had been full of life and music, with neighbors stopping by to talk and children laughing in the streets. This new place seemed quiet, almost too quiet, and it made her heart flutter with both excitement and fear. Elena looked down at the letter she had been given by her parents. The address was written neatly with careful handwriting, and it seemed so certain, so official. She had memorized it during the long ride, repeating it to herself over and over like a prayer. 123 Silver Creek Ranch, she whispered. That's where I must go. She smiled nervously, imagining meeting her future husband and learning the ways of ranch life. She had always loved animals and the outdoors, so she thought she might enjoy this new life, if only everything went as planned. She walked along the dusty road, listening to the crunch of her boots on the stones. The wind whispered through the tall grass, carrying the distant smell of smoke from a small fire. As she continued, she saw a large wooden sign ahead, weathered by time and wind. It read, Welcome to Cedar Ridge Ranch. Elena froze for a moment, confused. This was not the name she had memorized. Her stomach tightened. Perhaps it was just a small mistake, she told herself. Maybe this was a side road, or maybe the ranch had a different name than the one her parents had written. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, determined to find the right place. The large wooden gate creaked as she pushed it open, and she entered a vast area surrounded by rolling hills and wide open fields. The ranch was beautiful, in a quiet, simple way. Cows grazed peacefully, and horses stood under the shade of tall trees, their tails flicking lazily at flies. A small wooden house sat near the center, smoke curling gently from the chimney. Elena's nerves were easing, and she told herself that everything might be okay after all. She had heard stories of friendly ranchers who would welcome her with open arms. Maybe this man, whoever he was, would be kind too. As she walked toward the house, she saw a man working near the barn. He was tall, with broad shoulders and hands rough from years of labor. His dark hair was slightly messy, and his face showed lines from the sun and wind. He glanced up when he heard her approach, his expression a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Elena paused, unsure how to greet him. She had never met a stranger in such a serious situation before, and the uncertainty made her stomach twist. The man wiped his hands on a cloth and walked slowly toward her. "Hello," he said, his voice calm but carrying a hint of caution. "Can I help you?" Elena swallowed hard. Yes?" she began, her voice soft but steady. "My name is Elena. I I was sent here to marry the rancher who lives at this place." She held up the letter, showing him the neatly written address. The man studied it carefully, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I see," he said after a moment, his tone thoughtful. "And you were supposed to be sent to?" Elena shook her head. I'm not sure exactly. I was told this was the place. Her voice trembled slightly, and she looked down at her feet. She felt a sudden wave of embarrassment. What if she had come to the wrong ranch? What if everything she had hoped for was ruined? The man nodded slowly, as if understanding more than she could see. Well, I'm Caleb, he said finally, his voice softer now. I live here, but I don't think you were meant to come to my ranch. But you're here now, and it's getting late. You should come inside. You can stay the night, at least. Elena's eyes widened with surprise. She had expected him to be angry or confused, maybe even send her away. But instead, he was offering kindness, something she had not expected in such a lonely, strange place. Thank you, she whispered, relief washing over her. She followed him toward the house, feeling the tension in her shoulders slowly melt away. Inside, the house was warm and welcoming. The wooden floors creaked under her feet, and the smell of fresh bread lingered faintly in the air. Caleb showed her to a small room with a neatly made bed and a window overlooking the pastures. Elena set down her bag and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the strange mix of fear and curiosity. Caleb left her for a moment, returning with a cup of warm tea. He handed it to her with a polite nod. You must be tired from your journey, he said. It's not an easy trip from your village. Elena smiled faintly. No, it's not. But it's beautiful here. She sipped the tea, the warmth spreading through her. I didn't expect to come to the wrong ranch. Caleb nodded again, understanding in his eyes. Sometimes life takes us where we don't expect, he said quietly. But maybe it's for a reason. You're safe here, at least for tonight. Elena felt a strange comfort in his words. She had been scared, lost in a world she didn't know, but his calm presence made her feel like she was not completely alone. She realized that maybe this mistake, as frightening as it was, could still bring something good. That night, as she lay in bed, Elena thought about her family, her home, and the journey she had taken. She thought about the man named Caleb, who seemed quiet but kind, and about the vast fields that stretched beyond the windows. She felt a small spark of hope, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, this unexpected turn could lead to something meaningful. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying the soft sounds of the ranch at night, the distant low of cows, the flap of a barn door, and the gentle whisper of leaves. Elena closed her eyes, letting the quiet soothe her. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in hours she felt a sense of peace. And somewhere in the stillness, Caleb looked out the window at the night sky, thinking about the stranger who had appeared at his gate. He had lived a long time alone, his heart quiet from years of solitude. But seeing Elena there, lost and uncertain, something stirred in him, a quiet curiosity, a hint of something he had almost forgotten, the possibility of connection, of companionship, of hope. Neither of them knew what the future held, or how the mix-up that brought Elena to the wrong ranch would change their lives. But in that moment, in the gentle warmth of the quiet house and the vastness of the fields beyond, two strangers shared the beginning of a story that neither had expected, a story of chance, kindness, and the subtle ways life guides people to each other. The next morning, sunlight streamed gently through the small window, painting soft golden lines across the wooden floor. Elena woke to the quiet sounds of the ranch, the low hum of cows grazing, the rhythmic clatter of hooves on the barn floor, and the gentle whistle of the wind across the fields. She sat up slowly, feeling the unfamiliar softness of the bed, and glanced around the room. Everything was new, yet surprisingly comforting. She dressed quickly, brushing her hair and tidying her few belongings. The house was simple but warm. There were shelves lined with neatly stacked books, some old and worn, others freshly read. A small table in the corner held a vase with dried flowers, a detail that made the place feel cared for. Elena felt a mixture of nervousness and curiosity. She didn't know what the day would bring, but she wanted to make a good impression. As she stepped out of the room, she noticed Caleb already in the kitchen. He was quietly stirring something in a pot, the smell of fresh eggs and bread filling the room. The morning light highlighted the lines on his face, the strength in his hands, and the quiet determination in his posture. When he saw her, he offered a small nod and a soft smile. "Good morning," he said simply. "I hope you slept well." Elena returned the smile, feeling her nerves ease slightly. "Good morning. Yes, I slept well, thank you." She paused, then asked cautiously, what should I do today?" "I don't want to be in the way." Caleb considered her question for a moment. "Well," he said finally, "there's always work to do on a ranch. Feeding the animals, checking the fences, maybe some cleaning. I can show you what to do. It's not complicated, but it can be tiring." Elena nodded eagerly. "I don't mind. I want to help." She followed him outside, feeling the warm sun on her face. The fields stretched endlessly, golden in the morning light, dotted with cattle and horses. The smell of fresh grass and earth filled her senses. She realized that this life, though unfamiliar, was alive and beautiful. Caleb handed her a bucket. "We'll start with feeding the chickens," he said. "It's simple. Just scatter the feed on the ground and make sure they all eat." Elena laughed softly. "I've never fed chickens before, but I can try." She knelt beside the coop, carefully sprinkling the feed, and watched as the birds clucked and pecked eagerly. Caleb stood a few feet away, observing her quietly. She felt a little self-conscious under his gaze, but it wasn't uncomfortable. There was a calmness in him, a steadiness that made her feel safe. After the chickens, they moved on to the cows. Caleb showed her how to check their water, inspect for any signs of illness, and ensure they were comfortable. Elena listened carefully, repeating his instructions in her mind, and soon found herself working with surprising confidence. Caleb occasionally corrected her gently, but always with patience and kindness. As the morning passed, Elena realized she was enjoying the work more than she had expected. It was hard, physical labor, but it felt honest and rewarding. She could feel the sun warming her back, the wind on her face, and the simple satisfaction of seeing the animals cared for. Caleb noticed her dedication, and though he didn't say much, a small smile appeared on his face every now and then. During a short break, they sat on the porch, sipping water and watching the fields. The silence between them was comfortable, not awkward. Elena glanced at Caleb and asked, "Have you always lived here?" He nodded slowly. "Most of my life. I was born not far from here. My parents had a small ranch, and when I grew older, I stayed. I've lived alone for many years now." His voice carried a hint of sadness, but he didn't dwell on it. Elena looked down at her hands, thinking of her own family. "I see. I, I, I've always lived in the village. It's very different there, busy, full of life. This place, it's quiet, peaceful, but quiet." Caleb nodded again. "Quiet can be good. It gives you time to think, to work, to be with yourself. But it can also be lonely." He paused, looking out at the fields, sometimes too quiet. Elena hesitated, then asked gently, "Lonely?" He shrugged, a small smile touching his lips. "Yes, I've lived a long time without much company. I enjoy my work and I have my animals, but people are different. They bring noise, and sometimes they bring pain. Elena felt a pang of sympathy. She understood loss in her own way, leaving her home, stepping into the unknown. She wanted to say something comforting, but words felt inadequate. Instead, she offered a soft smile and nodded. Caleb noticed, and for the first time he seemed a little lighter, a little less guarded. The rest of the morning passed in a gentle rhythm of work and quiet conversation. Elena learned how to milk a cow, how to gather eggs without startling the chickens, and how to carry water efficiently. Caleb guided her patiently, sometimes letting her try on her own, sometimes demonstrating with practiced ease. Each task became an opportunity for connection, for small moments of shared accomplishment. Around midday, they prepared a simple lunch together. Elena had never cooked on a stove that was also an oven, and she was fascinated by Caleb's methods. He showed her how to make a basic stew, explaining each step with care. Elena laughed when she accidentally spilled some vegetables on the floor, and Caleb chuckled along with her, the sound warm and genuine. As they ate, they talked about small things: the weather, the animals, the routines of ranch life. Elena shared stories of her village, of festivals and dances, of the sound of drums and the smell of fresh bread baking in her home. Caleb listened, genuinely interested, asking questions and smiling at her enthusiasm. Elena realized that he wasn't as quiet as she had thought. He had a gentle humor, a way of speaking that made her feel at ease. After lunch, they returned to the fields. The sun was higher now, hotter, but Elena felt a strange energy in her body. The work was hard, yes, but it made her feel alive. Caleb noticed her determination and nodded approvingly. "You're doing well," he said simply. "Not many people can handle this the first day." Elena smiled, a little proud of herself. "Thank you. It's not as hard as I thought. Maybe because I like it." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "You like hard work?" She laughed softly. "Not always, but I like learning new things, and I like helping." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "That's good. You'll fit in here, even if this wasn't where you were meant to go." Ileana paused at his words. "Even if this wasn't the right place?" she asked, curiosity and confusion mingling in her voice. Caleb shrugged. "Sometimes life doesn't follow the plan. You think you're going one way, but you end up somewhere else. Maybe it's better that way. Maybe you find something you didn't know you needed." Elena thought about this quietly. She had come expecting one thing: an arranged marriage with a man she had never met, a new home at a ranch she thought was her destiny. And yet, here she was, somewhere completely different, learning, working, and strangely happy. The afternoon sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the fields. Elena and Caleb finished the day's work, checking fences, feeding the animals one last time, and ensuring everything was in order. Their movements were calm, practiced, a silent rhythm that spoke of understanding and teamwork. When they finally returned to the house, Elena was tired but satisfied. She had learned so much, seen so much, and felt at peace, despite the uncertainty of her situation. Caleb offered her a quiet nod of approval as they stepped inside, and she felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the sun. That evening, as they sat together on the porch, sipping warm tea and watching the sun dip below the hills, Elena felt a gentle sense of connection growing between them. Caleb was quiet, thoughtful, and sometimes distant, but there was kindness in him, a steady presence that made her feel safe. She realized that even though she had come to the wrong ranch, she was not lost. And as the sky darkened and stars began to appear, she knew that tomorrow would bring more work, more learning, and perhaps more moments that would slowly, quietly build a bond between two strangers, brought together by chance. The next morning, Elena woke to the soft sound of birds singing outside her window. She stretched and yawned, feeling the familiar ache in her muscles from the previous day's work. Despite the soreness, there was a sense of excitement in her chest. Yesterday had been challenging, but it had also been satisfying, and she was eager to see what today would bring. She dressed quickly and went downstairs to find Caleb already preparing breakfast. The warm smell of frying eggs and fresh bread filled the small kitchen, making her stomach rumble. Caleb glanced at her and offered a small, genuine smile. "Morning," he said simply. "Sleep well?" "Yes, thank you," Elena replied. She hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Do you usually eat breakfast this early?" He nodded, carefully flipping the eggs in the pan. "The ranch doesn't wait for anyone. There's work to do. The animals need care, and the sun won't wait either." He looked at her with a quiet humor in his eyes. "It's good for you to get used to this rhythm." Elena smiled. "I think I can manage." She poured herself a cup of water and watched him move around the kitchen with careful precision. He didn't speak much, but there was something comforting about his quiet presence, something steady and strong that made her feel at ease. After breakfast, they headed out to the fields. Today, Caleb decided it was time for Elena to learn some of the more advanced tasks on the ranch. They started with mending fences, an essential but physically demanding job. Caleb showed her how to hammer posts into the ground and weave wire carefully so that the cattle would stay safe and the fields organized. At first, Elena struggled. Her hands were sore, and she didn't have the strength Caleb did. But he was patient, demonstrating each movement slowly and encouraging her gently. "You're doing fine," he said when she fumbled with the wire. "It takes time, but you're learning. That's what matters." Elena smiled, feeling a quiet pride. It was difficult work, yes, but she felt a sense of accomplishment she had never experienced before. Each post she set, each wire she tightened, was a small victory, and Caleb noticed every one of them. As the morning wore on, the two of them moved on to checking the cattle. Caleb explained how to identify animals that were sick or injured, how to read their behavior, and how to care for them without causing stress. Elena listened carefully, absorbing every detail. She asked questions whenever she was unsure, and Caleb answered with patience and care. During a brief rest under the shade of a large oak tree, Elena took a moment to observe Caleb. He had a quiet strength, a sense of calm that seemed to radiate from him. His eyes, dark and thoughtful, watched over the fields with a kind of careful vigilance. Elena realized that he had been alone for a long time, and she felt a pang of sympathy for him. There was a loneliness there, but also a resilience that was admirable. "You seem very connected to this land," she said softly. "Like you've been here your whole life." Caleb looked at her, a small smile touching his lips. "I have. This land is part of me. It's where I grew up, where I learned about life, about hard work, about patience. It's not easy, but it's honest. It teaches you things you can't learn anywhere else." Elena nodded, feeling a deep respect for him. She realized that this ranch, this life, was not just about work, it was about a way of living, a connection to nature and animals that required care, patience, and understanding. She felt honored to be allowed into that world, even by accident. As they worked together, Elena began to notice small things about Caleb, how he would pause to watch a bird land on a fence post, how he would quietly talk to the animals as if they could understand him, how he carried himself with a gentle confidence. There was a kindness in his actions, a depth that went beyond words. Elena found herself drawn to it, feeling a quiet curiosity and admiration. Around midday, they took another break. Elena sat on a log, wiping sweat from her brow, while Caleb leaned against a tree, looking over the fields. She decided to ask him something she had been wondering. "Caleb, do you ever get lonely?" He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Yes, sometimes. But loneliness isn't always bad. It makes you appreciate the moments when you're not alone. And it teaches you to be content with yourself." His voice was soft, almost thoughtful. "But I won't lie. There are days when it feels heavier than others." Elena felt a sudden empathy for him. She knew what it was like to feel uncertain, to be far from home, to face a life that seemed unfamiliar and challenging. "I think I understand," she said quietly. "I feel that sometimes too, even though I'm not used to being away from home." He nodded, and for a moment they sat in silence, two strangers finding a quiet understanding in the warmth of the sun and the gentle sounds of the ranch. There was no need for words. The shared experience, the mutual respect, and the simple act of being present together spoke louder than anything else. In the afternoon, Caleb showed Elena how to ride one of the horses. She had never ridden a horse before, and the thought made her nervous. Caleb stood beside her, adjusting the saddle and giving her careful instructions. "It's okay to be nervous," he said kindly. "The horse can feel your fear, so you must stay calm. Trust yourself, and trust him." Elena took a deep breath and climbed onto the horse with Caleb's help. At first she wobbled, unsure of her balance. The horse moved slowly and she gripped the reins tightly. Caleb walked beside her, speaking softly, guiding her movements. Gradually, she began to feel more confident. She laughed softly when the horse trotted, and Caleb chuckled along, his deep voice warm and genuine. By the time the sun began to lower, Elena could ride with more confidence. She felt exhilarated, the wind on her face, the rhythmic movement of the horse beneath her, and the beauty of the fields stretching endlessly. Caleb watched her with quiet pride, realizing that she had a courage and resilience that matched the strength of the land itself. As evening approached, they returned to the house, tired but satisfied. Elena cleaned up, feeling the ache of muscles she hadn't used before, and Caleb prepared a simple dinner. The small kitchen was filled with the smells of cooked vegetables and fresh bread. They ate quietly, sharing the meal with a sense of calm contentment. After dinner, they sat together on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky. The fields were bathed in soft moonlight, and the air was filled with the gentle sounds of animals settling down for the night. Elena felt a quiet peace she had not known before, a sense that despite the mix-up that had brought her here, she was exactly where she needed to be. Caleb spoke softly, almost to himself. "You know, life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes the path we think we must follow isn't the one we were meant to take." He looked at Elena, and she felt a warmth in his eyes that went beyond simple kindness. Elena nodded, understanding what he meant. She had come expecting one life, one plan, but here she was, learning, growing, and beginning to see that maybe this unexpected turn was exactly what she needed. She realized that she was not just surviving this new life, she was beginning to embrace it. That night, as Elena lay in bed, she thought about Caleb, the ranch, and the unexpected day they had shared. She realized that she had come to the wrong ranch, yes, but perhaps there was no wrong place in life. only places that teach us, challenge us, and help us grow. She felt a quiet hope, a feeling that something meaningful was beginning to bloom between her and the kind, quiet man who had welcomed her with patience and understanding. Outside, Caleb walked quietly to the barn, checking on the animals one last time. He paused under the moonlight, thinking about Elena, the stranger who had arrived at his gate by mistake. He had spent so many years alone, yet her presence had brought something unexpected, a warmth, a curiosity, a connection he hadn't realized he was missing. He whispered softly to himself, maybe she was meant to come here after all. In that quiet night, on a ranch far from Elena's village, two people began to form a bond that neither had expected, a connection born from chance, patience, and the slow unfolding of understanding and trust. Neither knew what the future would bring, but both felt that something important had begun. A story of hope, growth, and the subtle ways life leads people to one another. The next morning, Elena woke to the soft golden light filtering through the curtains. She stretched, feeling the lingering ache from the previous day's work with the animals and the fields. Her body was tired, but her heart felt lighter than it had in weeks. She had come to this ranch expecting uncertainty, and instead, she was discovering a strange sense of comfort and belonging. She dressed quickly and headed downstairs, where the kitchen smelled faintly of bread and fresh coffee. Caleb was already moving around, preparing breakfast with careful precision. His movements were calm and steady, yet there was a quiet energy about him, a focus that made everything he did seem purposeful. When he saw her, he offered a small smile. "Morning," he said simply. "Ready for another day?" Elena returned the smile. "Yes," she said softly. "I think I'm ready." She paused, hesitating, then added, "I feel happy here. Even though I didn't plan to come here, it feels right." Caleb nodded slowly, as if he had been waiting to hear those words. "Sometimes life has a way of guiding us where we need to be," he said quietly, "even if we don't understand it at first." After breakfast, they headed out to the fields. Today, Caleb wanted Elena to help with the cattle again, but there was a problem with one of the fences. A section of wire had broken, and some of the cows had wandered closer to the woods. Caleb explained the situation carefully, showing Elena what to do. "Stay calm," he said gently. "The cows are not dangerous, but they need to be guided back slowly. Don't rush them." Elena nodded, gripping the rope in her hands. Her heart raced a little at the responsibility, but she trusted Caleb's instructions. Together, they approached the cows, speaking softly to keep them calm. Elena was surprised at how patient and careful she had to be, and she found herself feeling proud as each animal returned safely to the pasture. When the work was done, they rested under the shade of a large tree. Elena's cheeks were flushed from the sun and the effort, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. "That was harder than I thought," she said, laughing softly. "But also amazing." Caleb smiled, watching her. "You did very well," he said. "You handled it better than most first-timers. I can see you have a strong heart and steady hands." Elena felt a warmth in her chest at his praise. She had come here expecting to be uncertain, maybe clumsy, maybe out of place. And yet, here she was, learning, growing, and discovering strength she hadn't known she had. As the afternoon passed, they worked together on smaller tasks, repairing the barn door, gathering eggs, and cleaning the small creek that ran along the edge of the fields. Each task was simple, yet it gave them time to talk and share stories. Elena spoke about her village, about the festivals, the music, the laughter of her people. Caleb listened, genuinely interested, asking questions and smiling at her enthusiasm. Then, during a quiet moment, Elena asked something she had been wondering. Caleb, do you ever think about family? He paused, looking away toward the hills. Sometimes, he said quietly. I lost my wife many years ago. I thought I would never marry again. I thought I would always be alone. My family, they are far, and I see them only occasionally. The ranch has been my life, my companion, my responsibility. But it's lonely without someone to share it with. Elena felt a pang in her heart. She had not realized how much grief Caleb carried, how much loneliness shaped the man before her. Bah. I understand, she said softly. I didn't know what to expect when I came here. I was scared, but I feel like maybe you and I understand each other in some ways. Caleb looked at her, his eyes softening. There was something unspoken between them, a gentle connection that had grown from their shared work, their shared laughter, and their quiet moments in the sun. He leaned back against the tree, letting the silence linger for a few moments before speaking. Maybe, he said finally, this mistake wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe it was meant to happen. Elena felt her heart flutter. The thought that she had come to the wrong ranch, but that it might be the right place after all, made her feel a strange combination of hope and fear. She wanted to believe it, yet a small part of her was still hesitant. Later in the day, a sudden problem arose. A young calf had wandered too close to the creek and gotten its leg caught in the mud. It struggled, frightened, and Elena froze, unsure of what to do. Caleb rushed forward, his voice calm but urgent. Don't panic. Stay with me. We'll help him together. Elena felt her heart race, but she did as Caleb instructed, holding the rope steady as he gently guided the calf out of the mud. They worked together, their movements careful and coordinated. Finally, the calf was free, shaking off the mud and running back toward the safety of the herd. Elena breathed deeply, her hand shaking slightly from adrenaline. I can't believe we did it, she said, amazed at how quickly the danger had passed. Caleb placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You did wonderfully, he said. You stayed calm, followed instructions, and helped save him. You have courage, Elena. Don't forget that. For a moment, their eyes met, and a quiet understanding passed between them. Words were unnecessary. The shared experience had brought them closer, revealing trust, admiration, and a subtle, growing bond. That evening, after returning to the house and washing up, Elena and Caleb sat on the porch again. The sky was painted with shades of pink and orange as the sun set, and the fields glowed softly in the fading light. I never expected my life to take this turn, Elena said quietly. I thought I would go to another ranch, meet someone I didn't know, and just do my duty. But now, I don't know. Everything feels different. Caleb nodded, his gaze on the horizon. Life is full of surprises. Sometimes the plans we think are important, they matter less than we imagine. What matters is what we choose to do with the life we have. Elena turned to him, searching his face. And what do you choose, Caleb? He looked at her, a soft smile on his lips. I choose to appreciate what I have, to cherish the moments I have with people who matter. And, maybe to see where this leads. Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest. The words were gentle, careful, but full of meaning. She realized that she too was beginning to feel something she had not expected, a connection to this quiet man, this ranch, this life. that had seemed so strange just a few days ago. As the stars appeared, twinkling softly in the darkening sky, Elena and Caleb continued to talk quietly, sharing stories, dreams, and small hopes for the future. The ranch, the animals, the vast fields, all of it had become more than just a place to live. It had become a space where trust, kindness, and understanding could grow. Later, as Elena went to her room, she paused at the door. Caleb was still on the porch, looking up at the stars. She felt a strange sense of gratitude and peace. She had come here by mistake, but perhaps mistakes were not always mistakes. Perhaps they were life's way of showing people what they truly needed. That night, as she lay in bed, Elena thought of Caleb, the calf, the fields, and the gentle rhythm of the ranch. She realized that her fear of the unknown had slowly turned into hope, curiosity, and even affection. She didn't yet know what the future would bring, but for the first time she felt that maybe it would be something good, something worth embracing. Outside, Caleb remained on the porch for a while longer. He watched the moonlight on the fields, thinking about the day, the calf, and the young woman who had arrived at his ranch by mistake. Her courage, her patience, and her kindness had surprised him, and he found himself thinking more about her than he had intended. A quiet feeling stirred in his heart, one he had thought long buried. The possibility of companionship, of connection, of a new beginning. In the stillness of the night, on a ranch far from any village, two lives continued to intertwine slowly, quietly, and unexpectedly. Each day brought new challenges, new lessons, and new feelings. There was a silent understanding that the days ahead would change them forever, bringing them closer together, revealing hidden strengths, and opening their hearts to something neither had expected, but both were beginning to welcome. The morning sun rose slowly over the hills, casting a warm, golden glow across the ranch. Elena woke early, as was her new habit, and felt a quiet excitement in her chest. Today felt different, full of possibilities and a sense of hope she hadn't known before arriving at the ranch. She dressed quickly and went downstairs, where the kitchen smelled faintly of fresh bread and herbs. Caleb was already there, arranging plates on the table with his usual calm efficiency. "Good morning," he said, glancing at her with a small smile. His eyes were soft, and for a moment, Elena felt that quiet warmth she had come to trust so much. "Good morning," she replied, returning the smile. She paused, then added softly, "I feel happy here, more than I thought I would." Caleb nodded, looking thoughtful. "I've noticed. You've adapted quickly, and I'm glad you're here, more than you know." Elena felt a small blush rise to her cheeks. She had come expecting uncertainty, perhaps even regret, but instead, she felt a strange sense of belonging, a feeling that she had not anticipated in all her days of planning and worry. She realized that she no longer thought of this ranch as a mistake. It was a place of growth, of connection, and now of possibility. After breakfast, they headed out to the fields. The morning was bright, and a gentle breeze carried the scents of fresh grass and earth. The animals moved calmly, as if sensing the ease and rhythm of the day. Caleb and Elena worked together in a quiet harmony, checking the fences, feeding the animals, and tending to small repairs. There was a comfort in their routine, a gentle rhythm that allowed them to communicate without words, understanding each other through actions and small gestures. At midday, Elena paused to rest under the shade of a large oak tree. She watched the sun glitter on the fields and felt a quiet sense of gratitude. She had come here expecting to meet a stranger, a man she had never known, at a ranch that she thought was her destiny. And yet, here she was, learning, laughing, and feeling more alive than ever. Caleb approached, carrying 2 glasses of water. He handed one to her, and she smiled in thanks. "You've been working hard," he said quietly. "It's good to rest for a moment." Elena nodded. "Yes." "But I feel good. I feel like I'm part of something, and part of someone's life." "Ah." She hesitated, unsure if she should say more. "Ah, ah, ah, ah. I feel like I belong here, with you." Caleb looked at her for a long moment, his dark eyes thoughtful. Then, slowly, he reached out and touched her hand. "Alina," he said softly, "I've lived a long time alone. I thought I would always be alone. And then you arrived. By chance, maybe, but I don't think it was a mistake. I think maybe God finally sent you to us." Elena's heart swelled at his words. She felt a mixture of joy, relief, and warmth she had never known before. It was as if a door had opened, and she was stepping into a place she had always belonged but never known existed. She squeezed his hand gently, her eyes shining. I feel the same," she whispered. For the rest of the afternoon, they worked together, but now there was a new lightness in their movements, a quiet joy that neither had experienced before. Every glance, every smile, every shared task carried a deeper meaning. The ranch, the animals, and the wide open fields became more than just a place to live. They were the backdrop to the beginning of a shared life, full of hope, trust, and the gentle bloom of love. As the sun began to set, Caleb suggested a small walk around the fields. Elena agreed, and they strolled side by side, the golden light of the evening casting long shadows behind them. The silence between them was comfortable, full of unspoken words and shared understanding. The wind rustled through the grass, and the distant low of cattle reminded them of the life they had built together in just a few short days. Elena stopped for a moment, looking out at the hills. "It's beautiful here," she said softly. "I never imagined I would feel this way about a place or a person." Caleb turned to her, his expression gentle. "Neither did I," he admitted. "But sometimes the unexpected brings the greatest blessings. You have changed this place. Ah, and me, in ways I didn't think possible." They continued walking until they reached a small wooden fence overlooking the creek. Caleb leaned against it, and Elena stood beside him. The sky was painted with shades of pink, orange, and purple, and the soft sound of flowing water filled the quiet evening. "Elena," Caleb said quietly, his voice serious but gentle, "I want you to know you don't have to worry about the mistake that brought you here. You are safe. You are welcome. And I hope you will stay, not just for a little while, but for as long as you want." Elena felt a tear slip down her cheek, not from sadness, but from a deep sense of gratitude and love. She reached up and touched his face gently. I want to stay," she said softly. "I want to be here, with you. I feel like this is where I belong." Caleb smiled, and for the first time in years, his heart felt completely at ease. "Then stay," he whispered, pulling her close. They stood together, wrapped in the warmth of the evening and the quiet strength of the land around them. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Elena and Caleb sat on the porch, talking quietly. They shared stories of their pasts, their hopes for the future, and small dreams they had never spoken aloud. The ranch, which had seemed so lonely and isolated, now felt full of life, laughter, and love. Elena realized that she had come expecting one life, one plan, But instead, she had discovered something far more meaningful: a place to belong, a man to trust, and a life full of possibility. Caleb had shown her patience, kindness, and a quiet strength that made her feel safe, valued, and loved. In the following days, they began to settle into a new routine together. They worked the ranch side by side, shared meals, and spent evenings talking and laughing under the stars. Elena learned more about ranch life, and Caleb learned more about her world, her village, and the traditions she cherished. Their bond grew stronger with every shared task, every quiet conversation, and every small moment of kindness. One afternoon, Elena's family called from her village. They had been worried when they realized she had gone to the wrong ranch. When she explained the situation, they were relieved but also surprised at how happy she sounded. They could hear the joy and calm in her voice and understood that this mistake had brought her something beautiful, a connection she had not expected but deeply cherished. Elena ended the call with a smile and turned to Caleb. "They are happy I'm here," she said softly. "And I'm happy too, more than I thought I could be." Caleb took her hand, holding it gently. "We have something good here," he said quietly, "something worth protecting and cherishing." As the weeks passed, the ranch became a place of joy and harmony. The animals thrived, the fields were cared for, and the home was filled with warmth and laughter. Elena and Caleb shared their lives fully, learning from each other, supporting each other, and finding happiness in the simple moments of every day. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Caleb whispered to Elena, "I never imagined life could bring someone like you here by mistake. But now, I can't imagine life without you." "I feel the same. What seemed like a mistake was the best thing that ever happened to me." And so, on that quiet ranch surrounded by rolling fields, animals, and the endless sky, two people who had come together by chance found something lasting: love, trust, and a shared life that promised happiness, growth, and a deep connection neither had expected. The mistake that brought Elena to the wrong ranch became the beginning of a story far more beautiful than either could have imagined. A story of chance, faith, and the quiet magic of finding where you truly belong. As night fell, they stood together on the porch, holding hands and looking at the stars. The ranch, once quiet and lonely, now echoed with the warmth of shared life, laughter, and love. And in that gentle peace, they both knew that they had found something rare and precious: a home, each other, and a future full of hope.